Hello, my name's Damon Wise. I'm at the Deadline Studio at the Toronto Film Festival. I'm here with Embeth Davidtz. Now, Embeth, could you tell me why you're here at the festival?
I am here because I have my directorial debut film called Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight, which is at TIFF this week.
And what can you tell me about this movie?
The movie is based on a memoir by the same name. It's a mouthful, Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight, which is really the story of a young girl growing up in Africa, in Rhodesia specifically, at the time that the changeover happened from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe and when they gained independence.
How did you find out about the story?
I actually read the memoir and loved it, fell in love with it. A lot of it resonated with me because I moved to South Africa when I was 8. So there are a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, but a lot of similarities between Zimbabwe and South Africa. And I really related to the central character of this young, spunky little girl, and sort of wrote the screenplay with her as the voice and as the narrator, telling the story of that African childhood from her point of view.
So was there anything you brought to the book, the adaptation that wasn't in the original source? Or how did you approach the script?
I changed it a lot, actually. So people who love, because the book was beloved by people, might be annoyed with that. But I flipped it so that it was told strictly from the child's point of view. I added a lot of things, the end of the film. There's a lot of things in the film that were just things that I wanted to put in there to enhance the story and make it dramatic but magical at the same time, because it's from a child's point of view. But the basis of it really is strongly from the book.
When did you shoot the movie?
We filmed it all in a tiny little town on the outskirts of Johannesburg in South Africa.
And how did you recreate that period? Because it's a very, very different time, I would think.
Listen, considering the budget we shot it on, I mean, it was a miracle. It was a miracle. We went very much for, if you go into thrift stores and old furniture stores, you can find, and homes still, places that look that way. And a lot of it was the lenses that we chose to shoot it on, which are these Blackwing 7, Tribe 7, Panavision, incredible lenses that have this sort of soft, the way an old picture from the 70s might look. It gives it that look. So a lot was how it was lit, how it was shot, and then the costuming a lot too.
How did you cast the movie?
The casting was not, for the little girl, was not the usual process. I really did not want an actor that had acted before, and she was 7 at the time that we did it. So just the films that I've ever loved that feature children in the lead role are always kids who have been discovered and found for the first time because they're so fresh and unique and alive in their way of expressing themselves. So we couldn't find her with regular casting, so we used a Facebook post, and someone found her for me and said, I know of this little girl. And as soon as I met her, I knew she was the right one.
What was it about her in particular?
It was, I think the thing about her is her wild, truly open nature. She's got an amazing face, so her face is fantastic on film, but also she'll say the most outrageous things. There's no filter, there's no self-consciousness whatsoever. So she's really just this unique little creature in that moment that children are in before they get spoiled by tablets and smartphones and whatever. She's just this, and very similar upbringing, running around barefoot, growing up, in the wild, swimming in wild oceans, and she just felt like she had no artifice about her.
What process did you go through to have her acting? Because obviously she's very young still. What kind of, I wouldn't say tricks, but what kind of routines did you use to help her give the performance?
There were lots of tricks, because for a 7-year-old, it's not like a normal actor where you go through 20 takes of something. I did very few takes. I always moved in and started on the close-up first, because I knew I'd get in the first few takes whatever I needed from her. So I'd have a wide camera and a close-up at the same time. And really I didn't let her over-rehearse. I didn't really let her learn lines. I said, don't learn lines, because she's so fast that I just said, then sometimes I'd be off camera and I'd say this line, and she'd repeat it, and try it this way, and she'd just repeat it. And so there were a few takes that one would get, and then you'd move on, because it would start losing the spontaneity that she naturally has.
Let's talk about the title. It's a bit of a mouthful. Can you explain the meaning behind it?
Yes, so as you probably know, there's an expression, if a restaurant's gone bad, you'd say, well, that place has gone to the dogs. So the title, Don't Let's Go to the Dogs, in other words, don't let's fall apart. It's from an English humorist that wrote back in, I forget what year he wrote in, and it was basically a funny line meant to be, don't let's go to the dogs tonight, for mother will be there. And I think that's the underlying thing in the story, is that the mother is slowly falling apart. So it's saying, let's not fall apart. Let's not go to that bad place of falling apart, because mother will be there in a bad place.
Has the film screened here yet?
No, it's on Thursday night we screen.
What kind of reactions would you hope to get from this kind of movie? I know that's quite a broad question to ask, but from what reactions have you had from people who've seen it? What kind of reactions would you be happy with?
We've been knocked out by the reactions. So we were at Telluride Film Festival last week and got really astonishing reviews, which I was very happy with. And, you want people, because there are parts in it, as much as it's a very dark story of a dark time, it's very funny in places too. The child is very funny. So what I'd love is for people to start off laughing, and then as the film goes on, see where it gets more serious, and then be left with a feeling of optimism, possibly, and hope by the end.
How did you get through the in terms of the editing? I mean, was it? Did you always know what shape the film would take, or did you find it in the edit, as people often do?
That was actually, editing was a big learning curve for me, because I'd never edited before, right? So if you're an actor, you see certain things in the post-production thing, but the edit is a different thing. And I knew also with a child actor that there would be things that we didn't have. There were things that I wanted from the script, and on a shooting day we didn't necessarily get. So what I loved about the editing process is the chance to completely reshape something, recreate it, find interesting new things. It was almost like a different creative process and a different shoot all on its own. And it actually was incredibly helpful, because the raw footage is sort of like this big lump of clay, and then you get to carve something out of it.
So do you see yourself as, are you still an actor-director, or will you be directing more in the future?
Probably both. Probably I'll still do both. I was somewhat bored with the parts that I've played in the last couple of years, because I'm older and I was raising my kids. And so I found this so exciting. I loved doing it. I'd love to direct again, too.
And do you think there's more stories in your place you were born, places you come from? Do you see yourself making more films of this kind?
It's interesting because, of course, I don't want to just isolate myself to that part of the world and telling stories from that part of the world, but I think that the stories that one does best are the ones that you know best, from the place you know best. So I have stories to tell about my life in America too, but I think, I probably will end up shooting at some point in Africa again, because I love it there too.
And what is it about Africa that keeps pulling you back?
The people are magical. People always say that anyone who's been to Africa, you sort of never can leave it behind. It stays a part of your soul, and that's happened to me.